Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am Janeen Alley, and you are listening to Becoming the CEO of Your Life Today. So, on today's show, I wanted to go over what it really means to be truly balanced from my perspective as a CEO and as a mom and as a yoga teacher. Because I think the way that the world talks about balance is not what I mean when I talk about being balanced. So, I wanted to weigh in today from my perspective and the experience that I've had applying breath work and meditation and my own coaching practice to the things that I have going on in my life. I think when people use this word and they're talking about becoming more balanced, there's still this element of force or manipulation or hustle behind the word. Like we have to work hard in order to stay balanced. And kind of a dead giveaway for people when I'm talking to them is I know they're off balance or they feel out of balance in their life when their self-care things feel like one more box to check. And even a little bit deeper than that, when the things on their list or the things on their calendars feel like a box to be checked. When you're truly balanced, life doesn't feel like work. And I do have to say, I'm balanced most of the time, but not all the time because I'm still a human being. But balance has nothing to do with how much time I'm actually allocating to certain areas of my life. I think sometimes we think that way. If I can just exercise for 30 minutes or 60 minutes, and then I can spend time eating well, and I can spend time taking a walk every day, as well as juggling my family and the work that I have to do in the world, then I'll be balanced. Balance has nothing to do with that. Being balanced is a state of being, and it's internal work. Gandhi said there isn't a path to peace. Peace is the path. And that's what we're talking about today when it comes to being balanced. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about as far as becoming balanced is having a regulated nervous system. And this is something that I'm actually going to go even deeper on next week on the podcast. So if this is something that interests you, make sure you tune back in again next week so that you can learn a little bit more about how to do this. But ideally, when your nervous system is regulated, you're at peace, no matter the things that come up. And I'm not talking about catastrophic things. I'm not talking about emotions that we're expected to feel that match a circumstance that we're experiencing. I'm talking about when we have an emotional response that does not match the circumstances that we're living in. So for example, if your kid spills a smoothie on the carpet, or you lose your keys, or there's a flood in the basement at the same time that you're supposed to make dinner, these kinds of things don't bother you very much. It's like, okay, we'll get to that. That's it. And it's not like you're numb to humanity. It's just that the emotional response that you're experiencing matches what we would consider a normal response for the circumstances at the time. Okay. So I do have to say I'm not a robot. There are still things that set me off in a way that I turn around and I'm not really proud of, for sure. And I've shared these experiences on the podcast. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of them. It's not like I have anything to hide, but they come up from time to time. But over the last 10 years, I will tell you, I have made so much progress. In fact, one of my best friends was just commenting on this. She says, "You are so much softer." She said, "You're such a more empathetic person. You're still a leader, but you lead with love and compassion toward myself and towards other people." And this was such a huge payday for me because I have worked really hard on regulating my nervous system, because I used to feel like the littlest things would set me off, and then I'd yell at my kids and then I'd feel terrible about it. My sister even recently told me the same thing. And again, such a big payday, because when we were kids, she was someone that I had to exercise so much patience for. We're about the same age and we are worlds apart in our personalities. We talk about different things. We approach life in a totally different way. And so for me, I would just get really kind of exasperated with her. But now I just love being with her. I just genuinely love to be with her and hear what's going on in her life and hear how she's kind of processing and thinking about things. And I look forward to talking to her multiple times during the week. So it does pay off. It really does. The other thing that I've noticed for myself, because I have a more regulated nervous system, and like I said, I'm going to get into the nitty-gritties next week of why this is important and how to do this more often. But there is more of an element of fun and even like possibility about the things that I do. So for example, instead of telling myself, I have to get this done, it's more of like, hey, what if we could do this? Like, wouldn't that be fun if we could actually reach this goal? And that has changed everything because, like I said, it's just more fun instead of kind of being this like taskmaster to myself. And that has everything to do with me just having more of a regulated nervous system. I'm a lot more playful that way. Okay, so let's talk about another way that we strike balance in our lives. So I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience where how you want to spend your time and how you actually spend your time are two different things. So when we're intentional about the way that we want to spend our time and how we're actually spending our time, we start to bring these two things more and more into alignment. So we start to say we're going to do something and we actually do it more often than not. We end up having so much friction in our relationship with ourselves when we make a plan or even have a desire to start something new in our lives. And then we flake out on ourselves. We don't actually do the thing that we want to do or we say that we're going to do. So when we're planning our life from our highest self, we decide ahead of time how things are going to balance out in our lives. It comes from within ourselves and having this trusting relationship that the way that you decide to spend your time is something that feels right for you during the week. So when you're going to work or when you're going to spend time with family and your friends or when you're going to be doing your chores or when you're going to have time to yourself. And I get that there are so many moving parts, but we want to try and plan from our highest self and try our best to execute on the plan. We get to decide how much time is enough time to spend with our kids. Okay, you don't have to decide based off of what you see other people doing. Some of you are really sloppy decision makers and planners. And when this happens, of course, chaos is going to ensue, right? You're going to live your life at the effect of what is happening around you and feeling out of control. We create more balance in our lives when we decide ahead of time and we make a plan for our life. And then every single week, we map it out. So before you can even plan it out, you have to know what it is that you want. So once you know what you want, then you can plan it and then you can do it. Okay, and I'm going to talk a little bit more on executing in just a second. But there is even more to intention than just making a plan and making decisions about what you want and when you're going to do it. It has more to do with the energy that you bring to the table during the minutes of your day. So I had a client that just came to me. I just coached her right before I started recording this podcast. She came to me with her schedule, and she actually had taken a photo of it and sent it to me. And she's like, I just don't have enough time for my downtime. That's what it feels like during my week. Okay. And of course, there are both mindset and tactical strategies to getting this done. But we talked about how there needs to be kind of this element and belief that you have plenty of time to get things done, the things that matter to you. And how we find that out is we sometimes have to plan and try and execute on the plan, and then we learn things from that. But if we're constantly beating ourselves up about that and telling ourselves, I knew it, I knew you could never be a planner and an executor, I knew that you just didn't have it in you, you're not going to learn from that. But if you're like, okay, I made a plan, it was the best plan that I could think of this week, and I'm going to give it a go and see how it goes, and then you tweak your plan, you're going to get much better at creating this balance. So there has to be kind of, again, this element of playfulness and this element of feeling light and not heavy about your schedule. And not just that, but you can actually use certain times during your day as downtime when you're actually doing other things that you feel like you could do in your sleep, like driving a car, right? That takes very little awareness and effort on our part. But if you decide you're going to have a downtime drive, meaning you're not going to listen to any music, you're not going to have your phone on or even listening to podcasts or whatever. But if I'm having a downtime drive, it is a very meditative experience, just like you can have a meditative walk or you can have even a meditative meal. I mean, there's like so many ways that you can slow that process down and just be very mindful and present with your experience right now. Because so often what we do when we're driving or we're walking or we're even in the shower is we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about the to-do list, or we're thinking about something that's not happening in the moment. So one of the ways that you can maximize downtime and be very intentional about the time you do have to help you regulate your nervous system even is you're intentionally using that time. So when you don't have something scheduled, you're not flopping on the couch with your phone scrolling through Instagram and getting up 15 minutes later and still feeling frantic and crazy. You can create these little pockets of time that become more meditative and help you to be more present and help you to be more intentional. I know we talk about that a lot culturally, but I think few people know how to do that. So for me, being intentional means that soothing my nervous system is a super high priority for me. And this kind of leads me into the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is actually executing your plan. Because so often what we do is we talk ourselves out of these self-care kinds of activities because we don't want to. So let me back up a little bit. So let's say we make a plan. Executing the plan is a very different thing. So often we make a plan and we don't follow the plan, right? We're working when we really want to be spending time with our family and vice versa. And what happens when we don't follow the plan is things end up feeling like they're getting backed up, or they bottleneck, or we feel behind. And of course, we get stressed and overwhelmed. And when we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, we don't feel balanced. So I'm going to bring this back to one of the things I was just talking about, which was regulating your nervous system for a second. So you may have wondered how I actually soothe my nervous system. I just talked about a downtime drive, right? But there's a lot of other things that I talk about on the podcast that you have probably heard from other sources, right? Doing yoga, going for walks, journaling, sitting in my infrared sauna is one of my favorite ways to have some quiet time by myself, working out, meditating, breathing exercises, spending time in my garden. The list goes on and on and on. But here's the secret. Even though I know these things are so good for me, and I do them all regularly, I don't usually want to do them. Getting started on these things feels sometimes like a hurdle in my life. And this is where most people get stuck. We think we should want to do these things all the time. I mean, even when you're balanced, it feels like you should want to do these things all the time. I mean, it's self-care, right? And if we do it when we don't want to, are we really taking care of ourselves? Just think about that for a second. If you knew that something was going to regulate your nervous system and help you to turn off that fight, flight, or freeze response that we all have, would you want to do that on a regular basis, even when you didn't want to? And the answer for me is yes, I do, because my nervous system is not going to regulate itself because of the culture we live in and because we carry a phone around with us all the time. This is what gets us in a pickle sometimes with our plan. We get really excited about making the plan, but we absolutely stink at executing the plan because we're waiting to want to. And I'm not talking with just self-care stuff. We talk ourselves out of our amazing ideas and our dreams all the time because we tell ourselves they're hard, because we don't have any time, because we think there's something more important to do in the moment. When in reality, you planned your life from your highest self, and that is the plan. But here's the hard truth. Learning how to follow through is just as important as having a regulated nervous system. And you can't have one thing without the other, right? Because you need a plan in order to help you regulate your nervous system and help you to relax. And you need to be able to follow through on your plan in order to have it. This is the piece that people don't realize and understand. They think they're just not good at following through, and they stop right there. Listen, there are a lot of things in your life that you're good at following through at right now, right? You're good at brushing your teeth every day. You're good at maybe making your bed every day. I mean, these are just some examples. Even if you're not good at making your bed, there's something else that you're doing that you're consistent at. And if you think about it, following through is really the big fat key ingredient to everything that you want in life. Learning how to consistently work on something and being able to keep your word to yourself so that you show up when you say you're going to show up is the one thing that you need to be good at to reach your amazing goals and your dreams. Okay, so I want you thinking about it. Those two things actually are super key: regulating your nervous system and learning how to follow through. And when we do both of those things, we learn how to find balance in our lives. All right, my friends, that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I want you to remember, you don't need to wait until you've achieved your goals in order to be happy. And one of the ways that we do this is we focus on creating peace and balance along the way. When we do this, you're going to experience so much more joy in your life on a day-to-day basis. All right, if you guys have enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. And if you want to get coached, or if you want to find out more information on how to work with me, just go to janeenalley.com/breakthrough, and I will help you to create more balance in your life. All right, you guys, until next time, have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. We'll see ya. Bye.